All right, welcome to Lunch and Learn. I hope everybody is doing well. Let's begin with our bracha. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam
Haolam,
asher kidshanu
Kiddushanu,
b'mitzvotav
Mitzvotav,
v'tzivanu
Tzivanu,
la'asot
La'asot,
divrei
Divrei
Torah.
Torah.
Okay,
Rabbi,
welcome. Yeah, Paul.
I hope I'm not going to take too much time. I have two pressing questions about the services at Temple, and I hope you can help me. Number one is, who determined when we rise for prayers and when we don't?
It was not exactly a who or a when, but it was an evolution. There was a long practice, and the customs change depending upon where you are and who your community is. So, for example, if you are Sephardic or Ashkenazic or a Doda Mizrahi, a Yemenite, a Moroccan, Italian, there may be different customs on standing or sitting for different prayers. And they've evolved over hundreds and hundreds of years of practice.
And the second question is, where did this custom come of taking your talit and, during the Hagbah and holding it up?
I don't know. I think it's vizot, like when you say vizot, and this is the Torah, you point, but why it's this finger or holding your talit, I'm not sure, Paul.
Is it the
Thank you.
finger of God?
Research. Yeah, George?
The finger of God wrote the whatever? Was that it?
Sure.
I heard that way back when.
Sure. That's the point. The point is there's lots of explanations for why we do that.
Yeah.
But what's the true? Is there a true explanation? I don't know. George could absolutely be the one. But I'm guessing there are probably any number of various explanations for it. Good questions, Paul. Not simple answers. But if you want more on tefillah, I have a series of books that really do a great job of explaining, and I am happy to share them with you. Whoever just came on from the iPad, you need to turn off the live stream so that there's no echo, or you can just leave and come back. Okay, so let me get the text that we're studying today. And let me share it with all of you.
Hello.
Uh-oh. That's weird. Are you there?
Yeah, we got it.
Okay. That was very odd that, but okay. Can you see the text? Sometimes computers do awfully strange
It's a little small for me, Rabbi.
Okay, hold on one second.
Hi.
Hi. Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Okay, how's that?
Much better. Thank you.
Okay, so this year, I don't even know what I shouldn't say this year. I should say today. Who knows if in weeks going forward we will continue to or not. But right now I am sharing with you a text prepared by Dr. Aaron Lieb Smokler of the Institute for Jewish Spirituality on the Sfat Emet. And we'll see how it goes today. And if you want to do more of the Sfat Emet, we can continue to do so in classes going forward. So today I wanted to look at the text from the middle of the Parsha of the story of Noah. We know the story extremely well. God who calls to Noah and says that the world is corrupt. It's filled with Hamas, with violence, and build an ark and save your family because you are an Ish Sadiq Tamim, a righteous and good person. And Noah goes ahead and he builds the ark. And then the rain starts to come, and God says to him, Vayomer Adonai leNoach, Ba ata v'chol beitcha el hateva ki otcha ra'iti tzadik lifnei bedor hazeh. This isn't the first time that God has communicated with Noah, right? This is now the second time that God has communicated with Noah, and he says to him, go into the ark with all your household, for you alone have I found righteous before me in the generation. So we're going to be looking at this verse, and in particular, we're going to be looking at what I emboldened, ba ata, go into the ark. So that's what we're going to focus on. But before we do that, before you read what Sfat Emet has to say, what questions do you have on the text? And I saw, George, your hand was...
I thought you were going to go to the last part. Tzaddik in this generation, meaning you're only saving yourself, where Abraham was, expanding things.
Well, I don't know if that's necessarily true. There is a midrash that you're relating to. There's a debate amongst the rabbis who was more righteous, Abraham or Noah. And one position, Rabbi Yochanan says, as you just said, George, that Abraham was more righteous because he fought and argued with God during Sodom and Gomorrah. And Reish Lakish says, no, actually, Noah was righteous because in his generation, it took a great deal to be righteous. And but that is not where I'm going to go today. That's not the debate as to who is more or less righteous. And that debate, by the way, is only one position in the Gemara, one position. And people believe that it's not actually accurate because with Noah, God didn't really give him an entree, an opening. Basically, it was a fait accompli. I'm destroying the world, and there's nothing that you can do about it. And with Abraham, it was like, let me go down. Should I destroy the world? And so there was an opportunity for Abraham to argue where there wasn't for Noah. But that's besides the point. We're not going to spend too much time focusing on that issue. Instead, I want to look at the rest of the text, and I realized I'm no longer sharing the screen, am I?
No.
Okay. It's so interesting. I don't know why, but when I invite people to come in, sometimes that automatically stops my screen sharing. So I don't know why that is. But okay, so anything else that you see from this text? And God says to Abraham, go you to the ark that you built, you and your household. Anything that you see just in the pshat, in the quick reading of this verse?
Is the word atah superfluous?
Good. So why do you need the atah? Wouldn't it be fine if just said, Vayomer Adonai leNoach, bo v'kol beitcha, go with all of your household. So this word bo, right? What? I mean, this word atah, it's not allowing me to just open up the atah part, but right there, that part, you're saying seems superfluous. What else do you see?
Not in the English.
Yeah, there is no go you. Exactly. That would be like that. Go you into the ark. That's a good point. All right. Well, let's look and see.
There's also no mentioning about the animals.
Good. Okay. So here there's no mention of the animals. So it's just Noah and his family. And that's going to actually play into the idea of the Sfat Emet and his interpretation. Very good, Leora. Thank you for that. George.
Yeah, well, the next line, I'm looking at, the next line talks about animals. So, I mean, they're right there.
Okay, but they're not in this line, which gives...
Yeah, but there's one line being, okay.
Which gives
people
the Sfat...
are more important, obviously. And, the animals exist for...
No, because it could have all been in one verse. Go into the ark with all your household and all of the animals, for you alone have I found righteous. But that's not the way the Torah sets it up. And this gives the Sfat Emet the opportunity to make this comment. So let's take a look at the comment. Reb Aryeh Leib Alter, Reb Yehuda Aryeh Leib Alter. He says, my master, grandfather, and teacher of blessed memory, Rabbi Yitzchak Meir Alter, said in the name of other rabbis that the ark, the Hebrew word for ark, right, as we see here, right here, the Hebrew word for ark, teva, of Noah is like the words tevot and the letters of the Torah, etc., in that every person can bring themselves to every word of the Torah and prayer. Okay, let's just pause there for a second. What is he? What I don't understand. I mean, I do understand, but I want to help you understand. What does it mean when it says that the ark of Noah is like the words and letters of the Torah?
Isn't tevot just the plural of teva?
Okay, so teva is the plural of, yes, tevot is the plural of teva. What does teva mean? What's the Hebrew word teva,
Oh,
Ark.
George?
it's not, yeah, it's like a ship, but it's not propelled. It floats.
Okay, so there's, so
Did we
one,
get that in Moses?
Okay.
Was that word used too?
Good.
Just kind of floats.
good. Okay, so actually teva appears twice in the Torah, and it
Yeah.
actually has two different meanings, and that's exactly what the Sfat Emet is commenting on. Teva means, number one, a boat, but it's not exactly a boat like the boats that we know where you can navigate the boats. It's more like a tub where it cannot be navigated. And so teva is the same thing as the little basket that Zipporah put Moses in on the Nile River when she sent him down and it couldn't be navigated. And it's the same word that's used.
Yeah.
But teva also has a different definition in Hebrew. And what is that additional definition, Leora or Ziggy, in Hebrew of teva? Right, Leora, you're muted.
A box.
Okay,
Because,
good. So
you
a
know,
box.
we use teva in Israel. We used to use it for the mailbox.
Good. So again, like the tub that cannot be navigated as opposed to a ship, but there's yet an additional. What are tevot? What are tevot in Hebrew? Tevot are words. Tevot are words. So you have a word teva, which means an ark or a boat or a tub, and it also means words. So this is what gives the Sfat Emet's grandfather an opportunity to play a midrashic game. It's not so much that God said to Noah, hey, go into the ark, but rather what God said to Noah is go into the words.
Rabbi, a question. Oh,
Yeah.
a question. If you take the word teva and you spell it with a tet and an ein, you bring the teva, the
Nature.
nature, and also the human, what we have as a teva,
Yes, our temperament. The
yes.
English word of teva is our temperament, like our
Yeah.
nature. We
Nature.
use both of those terms. What is our like, are we quick to anger? Are we slow to anger? Are
Right.
we, easily loving, or does it make is it harder for us to be loving? What is our nature? What is our, very nice. That's another whole beautiful midrash that we can play on this. Lauren?
Is there a reason why
Yes.
they call when
Yeah.
you keep the Torah, the ark, because then you've got the Torah that's filled with words, and then
Very
you
good.
keep Torah in an ark, and this is an ark. I mean, I keep thinking, I wasn't listening, if I didn't know that he's going into the ark, what ark is he asked to go into?
Beautiful, Lauren. You hit the nail on the head. We, in order for Torah to constantly be relevant to us, we need to use the midrashic gift to be able to interpret and reinterpret again. None of us are, in the sense like Noah, building an ark, a physical ark, to invite our families and the animals to save the world. And yet all of us do build arcs. When we live in moments of trauma and tension and drama, we oftentimes want to escape into our ark. We did that for the last 18 months when we escaped into the arks of our home, right, to avoid the plague and the pandemic. So there is something metaphorical about the ark, but more than metaphorical, I think Lauren's asking the question, why is it necessary to use this specific midrash, to play on the word teva? Because what the Sfat Emet is inviting us to think about is, can we today enter these physical arcs? And what are these physical arcs? And they are the words of and letters of the Torah. What does it mean to enter into the words of Torah and prayer? He says every person can bring themselves to every word of the Torah and prayer. What do you think that means?
Internalize or take them into yourself.
Good. Okay, so one possibility is to internalize them. When you say, Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, you can say it, but what does it mean to internalize that? First of all, what does it mean, Shema Yisrael?
Hear, O Israel.
Yeah.
Right? Hear, O Israel,
Yeah.
the Lord our God, the Lord is one. What does it mean to say that and to have internalized the prayer when we say it, as opposed to just reciting it as part of a congregation at services?
It becomes
I need
part of
to
us.
hear it, and I need to remember it.
Okay, in order to remember, what is it that you're remembering? What's the practical implication of remembering that God is one or that God is singular? Barry, what were you going to say before?
No, I was going to say it becomes us. It becomes part of us when we internalize it. So go ahead.
No, and what does that look like, though? What is that,
Well,
practically speaking?
practically speaking, to me, it means we're bringing God into ourselves and our lives.
And how do you do that?
When you're hearing, it's not just the physical hearing. Hearing means more than just the physical, what's going on when you hear. It's bringing it in more on a higher level, deeper level.
Which means what? You can see I'm really pushing you here.
It's indebtedness.
Say that again, Paul.
We're in debt. We're indebted to God.
Okay, so maybe, so I think you're all dancing around what it is that you want to be able, go ahead, Ziggy.
To me, when you say that in shul all together, it kind of like brings you together. It makes you one, not just that God is one, we're one in this community. And that's the power of that sentence, and not so much when you say it by yourself, but in a community, it kind of like we are one.
Okay, great. Anybody else want to take a crack at it?
I take it actually as thinking about the mitzvot and the good deed that we can do in this world. The fact that we are praying and we're thanking God that we are here, what is it that we can lehetiv to make better world?
Beautiful. Okay, I think yeah, Lauren?
I was going to say, everything begins with gratitude. And every day I write down blessings. And at the end of I keep them, I read over them. And so like at the end as I write down 3 blessings. So at the end of the year, there's lots of blessings. I mean, and I try not to make them the same blessings every day, something else that I am blessed with. And so at the end of every year, there's like close to 1,000 blessings that I've had. And I realize that I am not in control of my blessings, but I do think about my blessings and what it is. I mean, it could be like I got up from a warm bed. Well, I have a warm bed to sleep in,
And you think about that when you say the Shema. That is for you internalizing the Shema. Okay, so I think all of your answers are excellent. The exercise is to say, how do I take the words of the prayer and actualize those words in behaviors and in thoughts in my life?
Hmm.
How do I take the prayer book, the Siddur, the words on the Siddur, and actually live out what it is that they are directing me? So if, for example, I am going to think about the Shema, I'm going to say the Shema, the internalization of the Shema is to acknowledge that God is sovereign. I am not sovereign. I am bound by the covenantal relationship with God and therefore obligated to the mitzvot. I don't have, I do have the freedom to choose to be part of the covenant or not part of the covenant. But in internalizing the words of the Shema, I'm choosing to accept the covenant and myself is obligated to that covenant and then live out the rules of the covenant. I also, when I say the Shema, if I say that God is one, that means that there are no other gods that I am worshiping. And that the only God in my life that I worship is, right, the external God of the world, not my own internal ego, not my own desires or anything like that.
Yeah.
George?
Yeah. Okay, we're talking about the word teva. Is it ever mentioned in the Bible in that form, or is that a modern word? Where it's
Does
used
the
box?
word teva appear in the Bible as meaning word?
Yeah, that's the question.
I can go look at the concordance. That's a good question. I know that in the Torah, teva only appears
Yeah.
twice. Here and with Moshe when Miriam, when Zipporah puts him in the
Yeah.
teva.
Where it's a box.
I didn't look at a concordance to see if it appears in other places in the Tanakh.
Don't they use devar in the Torah? For words.
Oh, there's lots of words in the
Okay.
Torah for words,
Okay.
including like Aseret Hadibrot, the 10 words, the 10
Words, yeah.
statements. But
Yeah.
teva also means words.
Yeah, now, but the question
Yes,
is.
and that's the play on it. So the point is, what he's saying, the Sfat Emet, is when we pray, when we study Torah, when we engage in a conversation with another person, there's two ways we can approach those encounters. One of them is casually, and the other is intensively. When we do it intensively, we enter into the world the way that Noah entered into the ark. That's the idea here. So let's go back to the text. Okay, so he continues. Well, let me just go back again. So Noah is, the Ark of Noah is like the words tevot and letters of the Torah, in that every person can bring themselves to every word of the Torah and the prayer. In this way, they may be saved from all hiddenness. And, hold on a second, and it is brought from Sanhedrin, all animals that the ark accepted were taken on board. Surely a person must be worthy to enter into the words of Torah, but through absorption into the collective of Israel, Klal Yisrael, every person may cleave to the words of the Torah. So the Sfat Emet isn't easy, right? He's not, whoops, did I just lose the sharing? I don't know why it keeps doing that. I have no idea why it keeps stopping to share. So this passage, which is not an easy passage to understand, but we're going to work through it, basically raises four questions. What does it mean when God says, come into the ark? The word bo up here, right, doesn't mean go, but it means come. What is the ark that Noah is entering? Or in other words, what is the ark that each one of us is potentially entering? What does it mean to enter into words? We just started discussing that. And what does it mean to be saved from all hiddenness? So those are the questions that this very somewhat confusing passage raises to us.
You know, the first one, I see that when God say "Bo el teva," meaning I'm already in, I'm already here. Come join me.
Very nice. So one message of this passage of Noah, the model of Noah entering into the ark is of drawing closer to God. God is already present in this ark. And if the words, if tevot means ark and words, what Leora is saying is, where do we find God? We find God in the words of our Torah. And if we allow ourselves to be engaged in those words in an active, intensive manner, we will experience God. This isn't the only way to experience God, but this is one way to experience God. You can find God up on the tallest peak of a mountain after an incredible hike, or in the depths of the ocean, or in the face of a newborn child, or in the beauty of a new flower budding in the beginning of springtime, or fill in the blank. Or, as Leora is suggesting, you can find God when you enter into a place that God already resides. And for the Sfat Emet, that means the Torah, the words of the Torah. Why is it the words of the Torah? Because there's a Hasidic tradition, a Midrashic tradition that teaches, a Kabbalistic tradition, that the Torah is all that is creation. Even though the Torah comes to us as a document, as a scroll, divided up into 5 books with lots of words, that really is God. When God creates the world through words. And the words that God uses to create the world are the words of the Torah, the Hebrew letters of the alphabet. And that's all that there is, even though we live in a reality that shows that there are all sorts of other things in this reality that we live in. It's a false reality. At the end of it, all it is God that we are living in. But the Torah is the physical reality of that godliness that exists in this world, and it's used as for humans to be able to connect to it. God used language as a way of us being able to enter into relationship with and come to knowing God.
So that's a very interesting idea, and it sort of reminds me of Buddhism, that life is all illusion and it's all just the oneness of being, and that we separate ourselves from it when we distinguish the tree from the rock from the ocean. But it's all this love that is the energy of the world.
Yes, very well stated.
Can I number 4, the hiddenness, to me that alludes to Adam and Eve hiding in the garden.
Tell me more. What do you mean?
That they were naked. They were self-conscious, and only by coming out did they really see themselves fully and start having what I might call a conscience or a consciousness.
So hiddenness is not a good thing, which is why he says, and in this way they may be saved from all hiddenness. Okay, interesting. Good.
Yeah.
Rachel, and then George, and then Barry.
Rabbi. Hi, everyone. I have a question, but then I do have my thoughts on that first question. Where does it say come into the ark? Like, at least where is that one referring to?
Right there.
Okay, there we go. Yeah, thanks.
Ba-
Well, and the reason I was checking because that says come into the ark as in the question, but I was like, does it say come or go? Because when I make, that nuance of a difference of those words, I get then the impression it's almost like saying Hashem's in the ark, so come into it to meet with me, versus an implication of if you're saying go, still perhaps Hashem could be in there, but it sounds more like I'm outside of it. You go into it. So that's why I was curious.
Yeah, so that's the point, Rachel. That's exactly what Leora was emphasizing. In Hebrew, there are two words, different words to describe go and come. Go is often used, the Hebrew term is lech or lecha.
Yeah.
Like next week when God says to
Abraham.
Abraham, lech lecha, go forth. But that's not what it says here. It doesn't say lech ata u chol beitcha el hateva. It says ba ata. And ba, the implication of ba in Hebrew is come. And when you say come, you're usually referring to come towards me, because somebody's already there. Come and join me.
Yeah.
You don't say, hey, go and join me.
Right.
You can say, let's go together for lunch, but you say, come with me to have lunch, not go with me to have lunch.
Absolutely. Okay, thank you for the clarification. So then now the imagery, I'm going to throw in, if that's okay, George, real quick, that I was getting and thinking about teva, or is that how you pronounce it? Teva?
Yeah, teva or tevot.
Okay, thank you, tevot for words. Now it's going to be a little bit of a mixed metaphor that I don't know how well I'm going to make it work, but I had first the image like, okay, if it's saying like, come into this like space of words, I imagined an immersion of that, almost like a mikveh. And thus, if you're surrounded, you're taking the words through all of your senses. And when I think of like Torah, right, you're obviously reading it, you speak it aloud. If you're at the bima, literally holding the safer, scroll. So all the senses kind of can get employed as you're being immersed in that tevot. But then I was like, if it's talking about an ark, right, then there's kind of this enclosure you're in while then you're, on or in water. So that kind of messes that up a little bit. I haven't worked it out more.
I think you have it exactly. That's exactly it, Rachel. When Noah enters into the ark, when he comes into the ark, in other words, he completely immerses himself in that life, in that moment. There's no outside of that moment, of that space. I love your image of the mikveh, to immerse yourself in the mikveh, to immerse ourselves in anything. Yesterday, Carol and I went to see the Van Gogh immersive exhibit on Sunset in Hollywood. I don't know if any of you have seen it or signed up.
I wanted to go in Philadelphia.
It was, or it's going to Philadelphia?
It was there, but every time I try, it was already full.
It's amazing. I mean, you sit there in a room surrounded only by, other than the people who are there, these vast images of Van Gogh's paintings with music. In that moment, you're not thinking about, I wasn't thinking about anything else. I was completely immersed in Van Gogh.
So interesting, Rabbi, because I have heard so many mixed reviews of this Van Gogh exhibit. Some people say it's nothing, don't waste your money. And you're telling us that it was amazing.
No, because I can also see how those people could say, really, that's it? It's just like a movie of Van Gogh paintings with some music. And it could be that as well. It all depends upon the intention that you bring to that exhibit. That's the point of what I think Rachel was saying. If you throw yourself into it and allow yourself to be immersed in the experience, then you will derive from that experience joy. But if you say like, what's the big deal? Then you're not really immersed in that moment. And that could be in anything. And that is, right, what I think, yeah, Rachel, you said it very nicely, better than I could. George, and then
Yeah,
Barry.
can you raise that up a little bit to the original? Yeah, at first you say go and then you say come, the second part, the question.
No, I don't say go. In other words, in the Hebrew, the typical translation in the JPS text is go into the ark. What the
Yeah.
Sfat Emet is pointing out is that the
okay. Can I comment though? Okay. I'm looking at the art scroll, it says come, and bo is the command form for come. It's a short form without the vav, the way it's written. But what I want to talk about is the hiddenness. Looking at the time in the late 1800s, things that can trip you up, the Yetzer Hara, Shadim, demons, Satan. They believed in all kinds of things going on, in the background that you have to guard against. So I'd like to see the Hebrew for what they say for hiddenness, because
you mean you want to see Sfat Emet's quote for hiddenness?
well, whatever, it doesn't matter. But I'm just saying that, they were concerned about these things in the background that could trip us up, cause us to sin,
Hold on. Let me, Nistar. Hastara.
Yeah, Nistar. Yeah.
Actually, you know what?
That's
Here.
kind of hidden, secret, hidden.
Yeah.
We can't see that, whatever you're looking at.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I think you're sharing just your Word doc application. So if you're
Yeah,
on
I'm
like, the
gonna
web,
hold on a second.
Yeah, Nistar is hidden.
Yeah. I'm trying to find the original in the Hebrew if I can find it.
Sitar.
Okay, hold on. Here we go. Share. See if you can read this. See if this comes out.
Good
Yeah.
luck.
It comes up.
Okay, right here. Right. Oh, I can't. 1, 2, 3 lines down.
Called Hasitar.
So it says at the end of the second verse, it says, Yachol lehinatzel mikol haseter, that to save you from all that is hidden.
I would read it Esther, by
Yeah, like Esther, like
Esther, exactly.
like the name Esther, the hiddenness. Esther hid her Jewishness. Let's actually play with this idea of hiddenness and go a little bit further.
I was going to bring up the hiddenness too, in that I looked at it differently than Paul did, and maybe George did. I looked at it as the whole world's not, unless we enter the Torah and enter the words, the whole world's sort of hidden from us. We don't see the whole part of the world because there's hidden things that we need the Torah to help us with. That's how I saw the hiddenness.
That's nice. That's beautiful, Barry. So let's go back to the text. Let me share it again with you. Okay.
Yeah, Rabbi, can I comment? I got a dictionary here.
Sure.
Sitar, and this is, whatever. Covering or cover, hiding place or secrecy. Those are some of the things in this particular dictionary.
Good. Thank you.
Well, maybe the world's hidden to us until we open ourselves up to Torah and God.
Beautiful. Lovely. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Rabbi Smokler, I'm not sure I'm pronouncing her name properly, but I hope it says, as the floodwaters rise around him, as the chaos of the world threatens, Noah is summoned to enter into a haven of divine language. Letters, as much as a physical ark, may save him from drowning. The call to the teva, the word, is a call to each and every one of us to actively bring ourselves, even to forcefully insert ourselves into the words of our people, to locate ourselves within its frames, to see ourselves in the stories that we tell and the prayers that we utter, to carry with us our many gifts and burdens, and to find space for it all on our collective ark. If we do that, then we go back to, then we are saved from all hiddenness. In this way, we are saved from all hiddenness. So what does that mean? So the Baal Shem Tov suggests, seek out God in places where God seems most absent. There, mired in the muck of life, which seems so thoroughly devoid of divinity, there the master is hiding. Or, as his grandson, Reb Nachman of Breslov, says, even in hiddenness, within hiddenness, God can be found there. So what do you think that means?
Oh gosh, that doesn't make sense to me. Because in hiddenness, you're not allowing yourself to enter in. So if you're not entering in, how can the holiness be found?
Well, no, let's assume, Ruth Ann, that you are throwing yourself in, you are immersing yourself. If you immerse yourself completely in, then you find
You unlock it?
yes, then you discover the hiddenness which was already there. What stops us from discovering God in the place that God resides is ourself.
Mhm.
But if we immerse ourselves into the other, whatever the other is, the words of the prayer book or the Torah, the conversation that I'm having with Ruth Ann, the Van Gogh exhibit, the hike that I'm hiking, whatever it is, the recitation of the Shema in a community where everybody is reciting these words collectively, right? If I let go of all my other thoughts that take me away from the moment and I completely immerse myself in that moment, there is where I can find the one who is hiding. I can find God.
You know, I'm about to see the Van Gogh exhibit, and I'm glad that you're relating this to, the immersing yourself into it. And if I put myself into it, I'm going to get something out of it. If not, I'm not. So I'm really glad that
I'm not advertising you should spend the money on the Van Gogh exhibit. That's not what
I'm going in 2 weeks. So I'm glad that this discussion is, you're relating it, this discussion to your experience with the Van Gogh, because it's all about what I take into it.
And by the way, the Van Goghs, it could be anything, any experience that we have in this world, any conversation that we have with another person. Last night we were watching the Dodger game. I don't know how many of you watched the Dodger game last night. So
yeah, they won.
There were moments where, I was watching it and I was doing something else. I was reading the newspaper. I was actually answering a lot of my emails. But I can tell you that in the moment that Chris Taylor got up to bat and he swung at that pitch, and as soon as it hit the bat and you knew that it was gone, I was immersed in that moment. And when it went out, I was jumping up and down. I was screaming. I was hugging Tali, right? I was completely immersed in that moment, thinking of nothing. There is no way that I could be writing an email in that moment. Because if I was writing an email, it would have been like, okay, that was a nice thing. That's, lovely that the Dodgers, but that's not where my emotions took me in that place.
And not only that, but you were one with so many other human beings at that moment, because everyone reacted the same way. I did, Nathan did, all through the bars and canteens, everybody probably did the same thing.
Exactly. And not only that, Paul, but like I turned on to channel 690 because I have cable, and there's always the same guys talk about the Dodgers afterwards, and they take you into the clubhouse, because I needed to be connected to all of Los Angeles that had been rooting for the Dodgers. I needed to feel in that moment that I wasn't alone in my house. I wasn't alone. I was with Tali and Carolyn, but that we were connected to something much larger in that moment, to immerse ourselves in the joy of our team winning.
Yep.
I have new respect and understanding of Rabbi cameras now. I jumped up and yelled so much I scared my dog.
Well, I had that complete immersion the first time I went to the wall. It was just, I mean, there was no way I could do, my mind could be anywhere else.
Yeah, that's another good example. We have the opportunity. Look at what Rabbi Smokler says. I think her ending is beautiful. Sometimes God's hiddenness is itself hidden. Isn't that interesting? Sometimes God's hiddenness is itself hidden, which would be true exile. The mystical tradition urges us to resist the darkness of this state. Rather, it is our job through our language and through our prayers to experience and so know that even in what appears to be hiddenness, God is merely hidden and not beyond our reach. Becoming aware of concealment can itself be its own kind of revelation. This is a spiritual practice. That's what's going on here. What the Sfat Emet is teaching us about the Noah story is, if we want to be like Noah and enter into the ark, if we want to come because God is calling us to be saved and to save humanity, we have to immerse ourselves in the experiences of life, in prayer, in the study of Torah, right? In whatever it is that we are doing. We have a tendency as human beings, I am like the worst of constantly multitasking. I do it all the time throughout my day, right? Jill's eat. Now, and I'm not saying that as a judgment. Don't hear this as a judgment. I'm saying this as a reality. Right? One of the things that I used to love about going to the Institute for Jewish Spirituality retreats that I went on for a couple of years is silent meals. Silent meals forces a person who's eating to do nothing other than pay attention to the chewing of the food, the smell of the food, the taste, the texture, and everything else. And meals would be, we would have to sit, right, for a half an hour plus at a meal, all by ourselves, in utter silence, just focusing on, right, that moment, immersing ourselves in. Or there's a walking meditation. I don't know how many of you meditate, but there's a walking meditation where you just take a few steps, turn around and take a few steps back and forth, where you immerse yourself in those few steps, where you really pay attention to the movement of every muscle and the feeling of stepping down and noticing everything that is around you. That is the invitation of God to come into the ark. To do it, we can do it oftentimes when we're in a movie theater. We're totally immersed in the movie theater. Less so when we're in shul, listening to prayer, unless you have the opportunity to listen to Cantor Raffi sing so beautifully. That could certainly immerse you in the moment, you know, with that gorgeous voice. But most of the time, our minds go everywhere else. And then we jump to the conclusion God isn't present. But what the Sfat Emet is saying is God is present. God is just hiding. And you have to understand that God is hiding to be able to discover the hiddenness that exists there.
Rabbi, could you go back to the Baal Shem Tov?
Yeah.
To me, this is the essence of Tikkun Olam. Because I love this expression, mired in the muck of life. To me, that, where's God? He's with the impoverished, with the disenfranchised, with the sick, and the oppressed. And that's when people think, you know, where's God? You know, why isn't God here? But the fact is, he's hiding, and it's up to us to show his by being with these other people.
That's beautiful, Paul. You said that so nicely. Thank you. Ziggy.
Pursuing that line of thought a little bit further, I find it kind of odd that these master rabbis are saying that God is hidden. to me, it's more like you're not seeing them. You're not seeing God. It's not the God. God is right there. You're just not seeing God because of blah, blah, fill in the blank. So it's not like he's hidden. He's not. You're just choosing not to see him, or you're not seeing him because whatever.
Very nice. Ziggy, you could come to synagogue on a Shabbat morning, which you do regularly, and walk out and say, that was a great experience. I'm going to come back again. Because you understand that in coming to synagogue for tefillah, right, there is an experience that you're gaining, whether or not you're feeling moved by the tefillah. Somebody else sitting right next to you could come in, sit through the whole service and say, this was a god-awful waste of 2 hours of my time, right? This is not what I want to do. There's so many more productive things that I could be doing with my time. And that's because they don't see what you see in that moment to experience. Matt and then Lauren.
Ziggy beat me to the punch there because I believe that God is not hidden at all. It's that it's like we're swimming in him, so we don't even see it because it's just all around. There is the trees, the bees, the birth of your kids. All these things happen so often that you take it as natural. But all of these things are a miracle. And I mean, everything I see around, I think, is a miracle. And,
beautiful.
And to say that he's hidden is only to say he's so present that we don't see him anymore.
That is so nice. That's, I did just, yeah, that's very well stated. Lauren.
I was going to say the difference that I see is between having children and having grandchildren. When I had my children, I didn't have time to see the miracle of my children. I was so busy, feeding them, bathing them, dressing them, doing their homework, taking them here, taking them there, and having a job. My grandchildren, all I have to do is see the wonderment in them and just take the time to see everything that's wonderful about them, where their parents don't have time to see it.
So,
everything they do is wonderful.
Good. So Lauren makes a really important point. It all depends upon where we are, our state of being in any specific moment that allows us either to just be swimming in the ocean or to be swimming in the ocean of God. It depends on our mental framework. And it's true. The reality, as Lauren says, is sometimes we're so busy just trying to not drown that we can't see what is in front of our eyes. And in other times, we're not drowning at all. We're floating on the water, and that gives us the chance to see the world in a much clearer way.
And the other thing I was going to bring up, you had mentioned the book, The Midnight Library, during your sermon. I don't know if it was Rosh Hashanah or Yom Kippur. And, I had read that book, and it's so you think maybe some of the decisions you made in your life, maybe were the wrong decisions, maybe you had regrets. But then when you go back and actually think about it, maybe, you had free choice, but maybe God knew what you needed to be doing at the time. Because if you went back and changed just one little thing, everything would change. And so, maybe God was hidden, but maybe God wasn't hidden, and you follow the path.
God is hidden as long as we don't go back and look at those choices and learn from those choices who we can become because of those choices. If we just live in regret, God is hidden. If we live with acceptance of whatever it is, then God is no longer hidden. There's a very famous, a beautiful, beautiful song written by Yosef Kardaner, who is a very well-known Hasidic Israeli star. And he sings this beautiful passage based upon the thing that we just saw, Rabbi Nachman of Bratzlav's, even in a concealment within a concealment, the Lord, may he be blessed, is certainly there. That's the quote that I just shared with you. As I said, Baal Shem Tov's grandson, Reb Nachman. So I want to play this song for you so that you can hear it, because I think it is a beautiful song. And I have to, wait, hold on 1 second. I think I have to share, right? Want to make sure that when I share, I now see, this is where I need Cantor Raff.
I sent you a message actually about it, Rabbi, because a lot of people forget. When you go to share screen on the bottom left, you click the share sound and then it'll be fine.
That's it. Thank you. That's what I was looking for. Thank you. Okay, here we go. Shake your head if you can hear.
כתוב בתורה הקדושה, אנוכי אסתיר פניי ביום ההוא, ביום ההוא, ביום ההוא.
My cursor is on it.
אבל רבי נחמן מסביר, ואפילו בהסתרה, שבתוך ההסתרה, בוודאי גם שם נמצא השם יתברך, ואפילו בהסתרה, שבתוך ההסתרה, בוודאי גם שם נמצא השם יתברך, ואפילו בהסתרה, שבתוך ההסתרה, בוודאי גם שם נמצא השם יתברך, ואפילו בהסתרה, שבתוך ההסתרה, בוודאי גם שם נמצא השם יתברך. אוי אוי אוי, גם מאחורי הדברים הקשים העוברים עליך, אני עומד, אני עומד, אני עומד. גם מאחורי הדברים הקשים העוברים עליך, אני עומד, אני עומד, אני עומד. אוי אוי אוי, גם מאחורי הדברים הקשים העוברים עליך, אני עומד, אני עומד, אני עומד. גם מאחורי הדברים הקשים העוברים עליך, אני עומד, אני עומד, אני עומד.
You get the idea.
Wow.
Isn't it beautiful? Then there's actually these children's voices that come on. It's really so beautiful. It's and like what he says, I think is so powerful, right? It feels like God has hidden his face from us. And yet even in the concealment, within the concealment, that's where God is. And so even in those hard times, God is with us. That is one of the many powerful messages, I think, of this Sfat Emet, teaching us to find, even within our tradition, the God that resides right there, waiting, calling to us, inviting us to come in. So, okay, everybody, as always, thank you for your wisdom, and for Rachel, thank you for putting it in the chat. So if any of you want to find the YouTube and listen to it on your own, you can grab it from the chat and enjoy it. And I will see you all next week, if not before.
Shabbat shalom. Thank you, everybody.
Go up, Rabbi. Shabbat shalom, everybody.
Shabbat shalom. Yeah.
The Dodgers won.
Indeed, the Dodgers won.
Now on to